So lesson one, we went over mindset.
Dude,
Right?
it was good. I was excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, I was telling a few different people that I learned a lot just in having a conversation with you about leads and perspectives. And so, that's what this is all about is, and I think sometimes people want to make this like an exact science. And in certain ways, there's a science behind it. I'm sure you would agree, but it's not that simple. And that's why memorizing a conversation ahead of time I just don't know how people do it. You have to be tone deaf or something, right? To just burrow through and with a memorized,
And more
I don't even understand how it works.
I don't, as I kind of said, and I think you kind of said it as well, it's like we're not smart enough to remember all that. So we had to adapt. Like we're memorizing a script, but more importantly, one of the psychology pieces behind trying to memorize scripts to talk to people is it's really difficult to focus on listening and learning when you're focused on communicating and speaking, because your mind, actually in KW's world, one of the books, I forget what it was, that they had wrote, they talk about how multitasking is not really a thing. It's really more multi-distracting yourself. And I think that's the problem for me is my whole mindset when I'm in a conversation like that is I'm 100% in learning and very minimal in speaking and talking. And the funny thing behind that is when you do that, it becomes so easy to influence and help people, right? And really what it comes down to, one of the funny things on this is I watched The Wolf of Wall Street, I watched The Boiler Room recently, and I just started watching Glenn Ross last night. And first off, good God, like the offensiveness in those movies, like they're entertaining, but goodness sakes. What it really comes down to is the stuff you and I are talking about can be used for good or for bad. Like if my intent and my heart is to screw people, as odd as it sounds, you could probably take a lot of what you're learning here and you could do it to do really bad things. I really hope you all realize that the way to win in business long term is you got to have your heart in the right place, because we have more accountability in the world than ever before. And frankly, it's the right thing and the good thing to do. And it's just so interesting, like the old school mantra of always be closing and just like screwing people. Who cares if they're getting screwed over? That would never apply today, because people can go on Facebook, tag you, and you're done. Like it's game over. It can be everywhere. Thankfully, that does exist. But that's what's so unique is watching that, and then you don't have to be that way anymore.
No, I'm so glad, because I would have been bad at it. But I also think, and you've kind of alluded to this already, but authenticity.
100%.
When someone feels like they're talking to somebody authentic, their guard starts to drop. And if I'm, hi, Robbie, this is Barry over at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. How are you today? Like, what is that? Get away from me. I don't want to talk to you, 100%. And so I think one thing that I want to tell all the people that are watching this is that don't be afraid to be you. And that's my takeaway from last session. Just don't be afraid to be you, and focus on them. Focus on them.
Absolutely.
So today we are going to talk about reframing, which is interesting because we're all about the person, but now suddenly we're going to talk about how to shift the conversation. Would that be a good way to put it?
That's exactly how I would put it, 100%.
So what do we need to learn about reframing the conversation? I have one thing I want to share, but I'd love to hear some things that you have with regards to this, Robbie.
Yeah, so this is probably the biggest thing that I learned. One of the biggest tactics that I teach is always reframing the conversation. So if we could, I want you all, some people are taking notes. What I want you to do is I want you to draw two sizable boxes side by side. So if you have a sheet of paper in front of you, I'll literally do it for you so y'all can see this. Okay, I want you to draw this right here. Two boxes side by side, big enough so you can draw some stuff in it. There's really, simply put, in the left-hand box, what I want you to draw is a house. All right. What I've learned in real estate is that most people, when they have conversations, whether it's a property inquiry lead, Zillow, Realtor.com, or a Ylopo lead that raised their hand and says, I want to learn more about 123 Main Street, we focus on real estate, right? And that's what I want you to do is draw a house in that box. Take the time to do it real quick. You can, put a front door on it, some picture windows, a tree behind it if you want, fenced backyard. Yeah. This is like Blue's Clues, by the way. It shouldn't be perfect. It should just be good enough so you know what it is. But let's, yeah, dude. If y'all didn't see, Barry and I were talking about Teletubbies in some threads last night, so we're bringing it real back to my childhood. And while I'm digressing, I might as well add one more. Mandalorian season 2, got to represent. That is coming out. So Friday, I'm so hyped. I'm a nerd.
I know, definitely Star Wars fan myself. So
yeah, I'm pretty hyped. So, anyways, left-hand side, right? Most people are talking about real estate, and it's almost always because when you're calling a lead, a really good example, Barry, is let's say we're buying Zillow leads or Realtor.com leads. When somebody inquires about 123 Main Street, the common script I hear is, hey, Barry, saw that you were looking at 123 Main Street on Zillow. What questions do you have about that house? Or when do you want to go view that home? And the problem is that you're stuck inside this box. See the analogy here of making you draw a box. You're stuck inside this box of stock or talking about real estate. And we'll talk about the second box later, where it's going to be a few minutes. But the problem is this, is that when you're framing your conversations around real estate, your value proposition is only one simple thing. It's being a gatekeeper of information about that house. It's why a lot of you, when you ask that question, next thing you know, either they're arranging a showing within 2-3 minutes and that's it. And that's actually not a good thing, by the way. To me, that's not an appointment, just so you all know. That's not an appointment in my eyes. You don't know anything about that lead. You don't know if they're an axe murderer waiting to take you out. You don't know if they're actually got a credit score of 400. You don't know if they even need to be looking at this house, more importantly. You know nothing. You're just scheduling a showing. And that, to me, is not positive. It's not a good thing. And it's because your value proposition is literally just revealing information they can't get without you. More importantly, I hope people realize that that value proposition has been eroding for 20 years. Right? The agent historically has been the gatekeeper of information in the real estate game. Right? It goes back to the days of having the real estate book. The only way you could really learn about a house is going to it. Then the internet came out and you could see a bunch of pictures online, and that changed how many showings people would need to see or how many homes they would need to see, because I could see a bunch online, right? Which made our lives a little bit easier, frankly. Now we're moving into a world with AR, VR, tours, that people don't have to go with you inside a home to get value and to see the information anymore. And more importantly, you see the whole trend right now that out there, you're seeing this trend in the marketplace where people can do self-guided tours. And that's going to keep happening. In other words, your value proposition of being a gatekeeper of information, that value proposition is eroding, right? It's significantly dropping. So that's the first piece. I want to start there, Barry. We're going to transition of like, what do you do next? How do you transition to something else? But I wanted to start there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I jokingly say we were in the 80s, we were the keeper of the flame,
Yes.
And now we're not, now they don't need us for information. They can get them. They have too much information. Really what they need is someone to interpret the information. And I tell my agents all the time, if your value proposition can be done by a website like Zillow, you're not valuable.
Correct.
Like, I wouldn't answer the call the next time you called me. Also, so you've got a lot of kids, right? I feel like I've got a lot of kids. Howard always picks on me about it, but so I don't want to think for you. If you're calling me to offer me a service and I've been working all day, I just got done cooking dinner, I've got to help with virtual learning, and now you want me to answer a question about what my goals are with real estate? Like, bye, like, don't call me. But if you can actually make it easy for me, I'm going to delight in that. John,
Sure.
if you want to buy in the next year or so, there's a few things I wanted to tell you that you should be doing. I just want to receive, just give to me, but don't
Mhm.
take.
Yeah.
And so, I really like where you've started with this, because I
Mhm.
think that generally speaking, the scripts that agents are learning are not focused on this. They're
No.
focused on my needs as the agent.
Mhm.
I need I need these set of criteria, and then that way I can check it off and I can move on to the next one. And honestly, in many ways, man, I feel like if you don't reframe the conversation, you've relegated your career to luck, because I can't control the readiness of the person on the other end of the phone. And
Correct.
only people that are ready can answer substantive questions. And so
Mhm.
I've got to recognize I'm going to be stoked when they're ready and they answer all my questions. But if they're not ready, I don't want to just be like, "Can I call you in 6 months?" Like, what a waste of everyone's time.
Right.
Um, so
Well,
yeah,
and
no, this is.
you should be stoked about that as well, right? I think,
Mhm,
remember, one of the biggest mindset things on our last call was let go of the attachment to the outcome. Just be
mhm,
excited either way. If they want to do something in 3 months, great. A year, great. 2 years, great. Never, great. Doesn't matter. Like,
yeah,
I'm thankful. I'm full of gratitude no matter what I learn, and I don't push towards anything. And one of the biggest things that I think people need to know about reframing the conversation is this, Barry, that we need to recognize that leads, when you text or call them, they are fundamentally afraid of you. That's what we need to recognize. And they, frankly, that's the reason I wanted to watch all these old school movies is look at how salespeople are portrayed. And the funny thing is most salespeople I know at their heart are actually really good people. But people are afraid of being pushed, manipulated, or sold into doing something they don't want to do. It's
mhm,
the paradigm of a lead. They're afraid of you. This
right,
is why they don't, some people say buyers are liars, and I don't believe buyers are liars. I believe buyers give you little pieces of the truth, right?
mhm,
Little tiny pieces, because they don't trust you yet. And you have
right,
to signal to them, hey, Barry, bro, this isn't about me pushing you to do something you don't want to do. It's about me learning what you want to do so I can best help you. Now, here's the funny thing is you can't tell that to a lead, by the way. Because if you tell that to a lead, they think you're selling them. You can't tell them that thing. One of my favorite things is people will call expireds, right? And they think that, and by the way, expired calls are some of my favorite when I was an ISA, because it was nothing more than a counseling session. And if we want to talk about reframing the call, most people, when they call an expired lead, right, or canceled or something like that, they would call and their whole goal was to I don't know, maybe sometimes tell a lie of, I have a buyer that wants to see it. Can I come through? Stop lying to people, first off, number one. You'll get found out eventually. Number two, the next thing they would do is they'd start selling, when are you going to be meeting with the right agent to sell your home? That stuff's garbage too, because everybody else is saying it. I
mhm,
would call with one intent, and it would be calling to find out why the person was trying to sell their home. And honestly, you know what my whole goal in a conversation was, Barry? To
mm,
get them to vent about their prior real estate experience with their other agents, because nobody else was calling to allow that person to vent. Are expired heartbroken, sad, mad, frustrated? Every dang time, right?
yep,
Dreams have been dashed. They've missed out on opportunities. They're not getting, their home isn't sold. They're pissed. Their agent didn't communicate with them. You're the first person telling them that their home expired. They don't even know what that means, by the way. By the way, that's for real estate agents. Please stop using language that we know in real estate that people don't understand. Don't tell someone that I saw that your home expired. Say that I saw that your home came off the market today, right? Use language that they actually understand. But the point is that I would reframe it. And when I got them speaking, Barry, all about their prior agent who never called them, never communicated with them, you know what you're really learning if you can get somebody to vent about their prior experience? You're learning everything that that person actually wants. Now, the funny thing is if I at any point say, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to be like that. We're not going to do it to you. Their BS alarm goes off like, no, you will. So you don't do it. A lot of people think that the way you win somebody over in like a negotiation like this or a conversation is telling them something. No, it's not. Just do it. Prove it. act like it. In that case, when we were having this
Right.
conversation,
Right.
my whole goal, get them talking about them, their pain, their frustration. That's reframing the conversation. Again, we'll get to that second box in a moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm having to remember all the things that you're making me think about. So I'm actually writing them as you're talking because I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. One of the ways that I reframe, you mentioned about don't say I'm not here to sell you, because you actually are selling
Selling.
them.
Yep. Yeah.
And I try to use a little bit of humor, and I'll say something like, John, listen, I'm sure you didn't wake up this morning and at breakfast you were like, I think I'm going to sell my house tonight. Like, I know that you're not in any hurry. I know
Yep.
that. That's not what this is about. And because what I want to do is I want to reframe the conversation. I want to de-escalate, because if your guard is up, the part of your brain you're using doesn't really allow you to learn that whole fight or flight. When you're fearful, you're guarded. The part of your brain is not actually in a position to learn the same way. And so I really need to bring it down a notch. And so the way that I do this, and I still do it this way with automated campaigns, and it's still like, I have homes, my team has homes listed on the market that are on the market right now because of what I'm about to say.
Love it.
My automation just teaches them how to sell it on their own.
Yeah. Right.
And then they're like, oh, wow, okay, I don't really want to do that. Or, wow, you were the only person that tried to help me.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. 100%.
That's it. And it's sad and hilarious and everything. And being different, I think I'm really glad that we started the first session with, just the whole perspective of the lead, starting with them, because I think if we can just focus on what's best for them, I think a lot of these little tactics and scripts, when you change your trajectory, it's easy. But I'm curious though, Robbie, it's easy for us. We've been established in our careers now.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you feel the pressure of needing to make a sale to make sure that you can buy groceries next month, that whole performance anxiety,
100%.
that is not an easy thing to deal with.
No.
What do you suggest?
When you're stuck in a piece of scarcity, it can eat at you and cause you to be a lesser version of yourself. Absolutely.
Right. So with reframing and causing them to relax, if I came to you and said, hey, Coach Robbie, I need to make a sale next month, and I'm having trouble relaxing the people because I'm stressed out about my bills. What would you say to somebody? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I think this is helpful with the whole reframing.
It's really funny because and I think people will recognize that we're going to be teaching you tactics, but it's almost always going to tie back to mindset in some way, shape, or form. That's just how it always works. And it's why mindset was so key to start with, because if your mind's not right, nothing else works. What I suggest, because this happens with ISAs all the time, when they have sales breath, and I can tell it, right? They're pushy, salesy, desperate, agents as well. The biggest thing that I'll tell you is I've learned one thing about the human psychology and how our brain operates is when you're in that mode, your thoughts are always filled with anxiety, depression, concern. And really it's what they call the lizard mind, right? It's you're kind of literally thinking primitively, because your brain is scanning for threats. The threat at that moment is, oh crap, I can't pay the bills next month, I'm afraid, right? And the reality is your brain, that part of the brain was created when you're walking through a field. When a lion growl goes off, you start running. That's how it's hardwired, is to protect you from that. Well, that's not the world, right? And I think the biggest thing I teach to people is when you're going through this, you almost have to like meditate on what is the worst thing that could happen if you don't pay your bills. Because what happens when you don't explore the worst case scenario is it feels so much darker and scarier. And we naturally as humans, we avoid the thing that scares us. And the funny thing is, you go look in the closet and the monster's almost never there or nowhere near as big. So you really have to meditate on it. And frankly, you got to have some faith for a little bit. Faith in yourself, confidence, go build on yourself. reset your mind and build faith and trust in who you are and what value you're bringing to people. You got to like meditate on that and explore the demons that maybe are sitting there.
I laughed. That was really good, Robbie. I laughed because something I tell my salespeople when they're learning and they go on their first listing appointment, I look them square in the eye and I ask them, if you don't get this,
Yeah.
can you buy groceries and pay your rent or mortgage next month? And they always say yes, because we try to position people for success. And I'm like, okay, so we want this, but honestly, let's just have some fun. And then I act really nervous just to mess with them. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I like right before they open the door, I'm like, what are we gonna say? Who talks first? Who talks? And then they're giggling inside, and it's like we go in and we just have a blast. And yeah, so it's really great to hear us coming to the same conclusions, maybe a little bit of a different pathway, which is irrelevant. We're still getting there. And there was something else I was going to say about what you said, but oh yeah. I have found that the more successful I become in business and in life, the slower I move. And I think that, if you're not successful in your trade yet, learn from people that are. We want to copy people that are successful. And what I found is, because I'm now able to focus more on my passions and my craft, I can like kind of quiet the noise. Well, and you might say, well, that's easy for you to do, but it's not easy to get there. And that's where some that hear our voices right now that are taking this class are there. And so what I would encourage you guys to do is to go back to the mindset section, pause and go back and listen to that. And honestly, just take that and really digest it. Maybe write some things down so that you can kind of say it out. You want to say it out loud. Believe it or not, as kooky as it sounds, it impacts your inner ear. And so then be more methodical about the call. Instead of saying, I've got to call 80 people, why don't you just say, I've got somebody on the phone right now that I think I've got the right information. They have a desire to one day or buy or sell. I'm just going to ride this one out. You'll find that reframing the conversation at that cadence will work really well.
100%. And one more thing I will add, just to add into that layer, is I've seen a lot of scarcity in people, and I can relate to this myself. A lot of the scarcity comes from a lot of times too much money going out than what's coming in. And one of the biggest things that when I take on coaching clients, one of the things that we explore is finances, because a lot of people, again, spend more money than's coming in, and we got to change that. And oftentimes it's a balance of how do we bring more money in, but more importantly, what are the expenses that we need to stop spending money on to create that mental safety? And so many people are afraid of what's coming because they are, frankly, overspending. They don't even recognize it. It's very easy in this world with credit cards and accessibility to credit and how you can go buy things on Amazon like this, and you don't even realize that, holy crap, I spent 3 G's on Amazon last month, And so many people just decided that. And the biggest thing for me, I've learned one thing, all right? I'm going to be very vulnerable for a moment. One of the biggest fights that I've ever had with my wife, you're like, where's this going? One of them, not the biggest one, but one of the biggest ones was her and I were debating whether emotions are good or bad. And I was debating that emotions were either good or bad. And my wife says, no, it's just an emotion. And after much reluctance and me being kind of an a-hole, not gonna lie, I realized upon reflection that all an emotion is, it's not good or bad. Really, there are productive and unproductive emotions. What I will say I've learned about emotion, just as a general whole for you all, is it's a warning sign. You need to view your emotions that it's maybe not telling you exactly what's wrong. You might be thinking that you're about to go bankrupt, right? If you're behind on your bills. That might not be entirely accurate, but there might be signals of something is going on. And it's your body saying there is something you need to explore here. And that's what I've learned is for me, again, I used to assign positive and negative, and I don't think that was right. I think really what it comes down to is you need to look for, what is this emotion telling me? If I'm scared, don't run away and hide from it. Lean into, what am I afraid of? And very few people do that. Most 99% run from it. They shut the door, lock the door, run away, burn the house down, and then it pops up in the next house, right? This is how human psychology works. I see it happen all the time. And the next thing, you go 25, 30 years, and you haven't explored the paradigms of, where is this fear coming from? And that's really what you need to do, is stop suppressing your emotions, because every single time when you suppress your emotions, you're like, it's bad, I'm not going to listen to it. I guarantee it will control you until it explodes and it falls apart. And I can tell you, because I've been there. That's been me. I've done that. What you need to do is explore it. Almost always you realize is that emotion was overblown. About 2% of it was real, 98% was fake. But I need to explore it. That's healthy. So that's just a random sidebar I wanted to add to that.
And honestly, I want to just highlight, guys, I know that for some listening, maybe you're like, where are they going with this? Well, in order for you to instinctively reframe a conversation and authentically do it, you've got to have some perspective shifts. And so if you're anxious about losing the deal, you need to deal with that. If you're stressed out about doing too much, you need to deal with that. Like, you've got to be able to get in that place where you can enter that zone where you can just focus about that other person. And you'll probably you might call a little bit less people, but the calls you have are going to be longer, more substantive, and work out to your advantage. Sure. And so this is not a sidebar. We could easily have said, here's the first 3 openers to reframe a conversation. And here are the 3 closings that you need to use when you're finishing a conversation with. We could do that. And honestly, it'd probably be a lot easier. I wouldn't enjoy it, but it'd be like, here,
And it wouldn't be valuable for you. It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Right, and you're not in a good place.
Because you'd be like, Barry and Robbie said, when they say this, it works. Why isn't it working for me? Well, it's because, it's when it comes out of your mouth, it's got to come out, from who you are. Right. So not hocus pocus, not goobly gop emotions. This is legit. Like, who you are is going to determine how the person receives the words on the other end of the mouth, out of your mouth. So, but let's keep going, man. This is good stuff.
So yeah, exactly. I agree with everything you just said. So let's talk now about reframing the conversation to what I recommend. And I'll tell you my opening scripts. And I'm going to say that word, and no, I hate that word. I absolutely vehemently hate it. And you notice that my script is just a question. So there's a couple things that we do, Barry, that's honestly counterintuitive to what a lot of people do in real estate. So let's say you were the lead, Barry, and I'm just going to role play this real quick with you, act like you're just the person. I'm going to call and say, hey, is Barry available? Right? That's the first thing I always do. And some people are like, well, why do you do that? They can lie. They can lie whatever chance they wanted, so I don't care about that. And actually, I always do it for one simple reason. The way they answer that question, for me, is a great barometer of who this person is. Because one of the biggest things you'll learn about being really great at having great conversations is you got to mirror and match really well, right? We're going to do a whole lesson on this later. But mirroring and matching, for me, when Barry answers, people of different upbringings, personalities answer that question much differently, right? If I say, hey, is this Barry? And Barry's a high D direct human being, he's going to be, yep, this is. Bold, direct, boom, to the point. If it's a high C, it's always like, yeah, this is, who's calling and why are you calling me, right? Skeptical. If it's an S, it's going to be, yeah, this is, who's this? A little more soft. And the high eyes are like, yeah, hey, this is Barry. What's up? Who's this? And that, to me, I now know, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. So I always start with, hey, is this Barry? When I'm on the phone, right? Then when they say, yep, this is, which again, most people don't lie, I've found, and I just go into the barometer, like in the middle of the road in terms of energy, speed, how quickly I'm speaking. I kind of go middle of the road, just like I'm speaking right now. And then when you answer, I'm going to change. If you're super high energy, I'm going to amp it up. And I'm not naturally built like that. Like even doing calls like this, I get exhausted because it's kind of like acting for me of like being able to communicate and help make sure you all hear this. I had to amp it up. Well, in that call with that person, I got to amp it up a little bit. And it's because I start seeing the world differently when I'm mirroring and matching. Just so you all know, we're going to learn about that in a later one. For me, some people say mirroring and matching is manipulation. For me, actually, it is the highest form of empathy that you can partake in, because when I'm stepping out of my normal Robbie shoes and I'm becoming more like them, I start seeing the world differently, truly. So, but again, we'll talk about that later. But then my opening script is, hey, Barry, I'm just reaching out, or hey, Barry, this is Robbie with Hatch Realty reaching out. I saw that you inquired about 123 Main Street on Zillow, and I just wanted to reach out, Barry, to see if you're just looking at that place, you know, kind of for fun, or to see if you plan on potentially making a move sometime soon. Now, some people always ask, well, why would you give them the option to say no? And here's why. Remember, what are these people afraid of, Barry? Me, right?
Right.
They're afraid of me pushing them. They're afraid of me pushing them to do something. I'm literally giving somebody immediately permission to tell me no. What this does, expert negotiators, Chris Voss talks about this in Never Split the Difference, give people the option to say no, because you're a lot more likely to get an authentic answer, right? Now, of course, some people say, oh, I'm just kind of looking for fun. And then I'll say, great, well, had you looking for fun? It's very simple. For me, handling objections is almost always what or why in front of their objection. It's really that simple, friends, every single time. There's almost anything. I want to work with the listing agent. Oh, why is that, Barry? Why do you want to work with the listing agent? Because here's the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing I want you all to know. You all think you understand where this person's coming from. You think you know why they're saying what they're saying. You're making a massive amount of assumptions is what's happening, because you're putting your own spin on it from your upbringing, how you were raised, how you're hardwired, and what they're saying, what you're hearing is different than what they are intending to say. And again, we're going to do another whole call on digging deeper. It's
really good.
More in depth. But what it really comes down to for me, man, is you just inquired about 123 Main Street. 99% of you are calling that person saying, what do you want to do 123 Main Street? Or what questions do you have? And then you have a 3 to 5 minute conversation at most. You schedule a showing, or worse, in a market like this, right? The home they inquire about is bye-bye, gone, because markets are crazy. And then what happens? You have nothing to talk about because the lead doesn't care about you. All they were using you for, because your value proposition was learning information about 123 Main Street. And then when you get out there and show them that house, when you spoke for 3 to 5 minutes, is open the door. When they don't like it, they walk out. They never want to talk to you again, because your value proposition was revealing information they could not get. You see, this is what's happening. And I'm gonna make this last point, Barry, and then I want to hear your thoughts. In the right-hand box, I want you to do something quick. I want you to draw a stick figure of a person with a thought bubble above their head. And that thought bubble, within that thought bubble, is a house with picture windows, with a door, with a tree, with the fence. You see, what we're doing is we're not framing the conversation about a piece of property or real estate. We're reframing the conversation to being about the lead and their needs, wants, and desires. Now, of course, in this day and age, people are less willing to have that conversation voice to voice. I mean, heck, another funny story on that was I bought something on Facebook Buy and Sell, and someone told me to call their dad to talk to him about it. And you know what my first thing I said to her was? Would it be okay if I texted him? Because people don't want to call anymore. They don't want to call someone. We're living in a world where we like to text. So you're texting this instead of emailing or calling them about it. And we talked about this on the, was it office hours or whatever we did.
Right.
But the point is that we're reframing the conversation towards being about Barry's dreams, wants, and desires, the image of the house that he wants, the players that play in it, him and his spouse, his family, What's impacting him? Those are all the things I care about. In other words, it's what Tony Robbins said. Tony Robbins said, you want to influence someone, find out what's already influencing them. Because here's the thing, friends, when you do that, you don't have to sell anything. You sell yourself by doing that. It's really that simple, because nobody else is having this conversation. No one is. I guarantee it. And they're like, what the heck just happened? Literally, people will tell you stuff and just keep opening up, because you know how we're hardwired? If people are asking questions, we're hardwired to answer them. It's basic psychology. People answer questions. They will, and the last point on this, and then I want your thoughts, Barry. I know I said that last one, but I got to add one more thing.
I love it. Keep going. Keep going.
One of the interesting things is somebody gives you a surface level answer right away, right? I'm just kind of looking for fun. And what's interesting is there's actually some interesting psychology that's surrounding depletion. Depletion is basically mental energy. And what happens is you ask them the question the first time, they have the mental energy to be able to hold up the wall because they're afraid of you. When you ask that same question, what happens is, and you're not threatening, you're just asking the question as that wall comes down a little bit. I tell everyone, go for 3 no's. It is very rare that if you go for 3 no's, that they just continue to say, no, I was just looking for fun, 3 straight times. The story always evolves, because Barry, how many people actually look for fun? None.
A lot.
None, brother, none. Want to know why?
Why?
Because they're looking for fun, because I'm looking for a project on how to renovate my house.
Okay. Yeah, right? No, that makes sense.
More depth behind it, right? Looking for fun is the service level answer. It's, I'm looking for ideas because I'm an interior decorator and I want to get some ideas for a house. There's
a purpose behind it.
More depth behind it. You'll find that answer, right? You guys see that? And when you do that, what you start to do is you start separating out the 15-year-old who's doing it for their fax project, which you don't need to do anything with, right? Compared to the person that's been in their house for a year and they're just getting innovation ideas, or renovation ideas, sorry. Or the person that's thinking about buying a home maybe in the next month or 2. You need to dig deeper past that service level response. So, Barry, I want your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people do say that they're playing or they're shopping for fun, but it's normally, there's like a reason that they're doing it. And, you know, what I also love I loved a lot of things about what you said, but one of the things that I really like is, you know, the first half of this was all like the doing the hard part, you know, figuring out, you know, what's driving us, how to be authentic. And so because you do the hard part up front, if you guys didn't catch it, there's a few things that Robbie said that were very simple, and he said them so quickly that I don't want you to miss them. Yeah. He says he just, when they give an answer, he just asks them how or why.
Yeah, almost every time.
And you might say, well, wait a second, that's too easy. Well, it isn't, because you had to decide, who am I going to be for this person?
Correct.
And so you've got to think about that. Maybe write it down. Who am I going to? Am I going to be a cutthroat salesperson? Am I going to be a compassionate servant? Am I going to who am I? And then once you get to that place, you can just react. Mm-hmm. And that's actually, man, why my team, the first team I made, I still have them, is Friends in Real Estate. And it was because I wanted my agents to talk to leads the same way you would in the backyard at a barbecue.
Amen.
When the person says something really stupid, like, I want to wait 20 years because I need to save $100,000 to buy a house. And you're not going to say, what's that?
And then you said, well, why is that?
Yeah, exactly. You would just be like, what in the world? Why are you doing that? And so, and that's authentic. That's who we are. And doesn't mean you're unprofessional. It means that you're actually helpful. So I really like the how and the why. I also like the tell me more, which you haven't said. You said it last week, or last session. That's huge. And then I also really like having to find out what's motivating them to be able to motivate them. Right. Yeah. All those things, guys, if you did not write them down before, because I'm horrible at writing notes, you need to write them down. Ask how, ask why when they tell you something. Some takeaways that, so those are things I'm taking away from what Robbie said. Some things that I would say about reframing the conversation, I've already mentioned, right? I'm going to try to take it away from them a lot of times. I know you don't want to buy anytime soon. I'm sure you don't want to. I know you didn't wake up this morning and think, I want to buy a house tonight. Ha 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 ha. I'm taking away the thought that I secretly am trying to get you to buy a house tonight. Because honestly, I'm not free anyway. So if you said you wanted to buy a house tonight, I probably wouldn't be able to just drop what I'm doing and do it anyway. So I'd rather just develop a relationship. So there's that. And then, when I do the DISC personality test, I'm a 100% I and a 100% S. I'm not supposed to be a business owner. I just want everybody to like me, right? So when I first started calling, I was an anxious mess, and I just wanted the person to like me. And so that's kind of where I was coming from, and they didn't like that I was calling. And so I really wrestled with that. And so for me, what I'm going to tell you how I teach my agents is from that background, being a nervous person, wanting them to like me, wanting them to say, Barry's not going to hurt me or harm me. So I would always start with who I am and how I found out about you, because I want to gain trust right away, because I'm nervous, because I want them to like me. Okay. So that's the background. All right. And so, so I would start off and say, hey, this is Barry, Better Homes and Gardens. I'm attempting to reach John. Looks like a home caught his eye on Facebook, realtor.com, whatever. So that's 4 seconds. I've said who I am, who I'm looking for, and how I found out about you. Now, again, this isn't a right or a wrong thing. This is like just different approaches that, work with different agents. And so once they, I'm going to ask questions, because I need time to think. Like the most stressful thing about calling a stranger is that when they respond and I don't know what to say to them. Okay. And so the questions give me kind of a cadence where ask and wait. And while I'm waiting, I might be able to look up in the CRM what zip code they're looking in, or price range, or how long they've been looking. So I'm scanning. Some of you might be saying, wait, you don't do that before you call? No, they have not earned the right for me to do that.
Never
so
do it.
they earn the right for me to do that after they answer. And I bought myself time because I've asked them a question. I like asking for what stood out about what they saw. Just, hey, just out of curiosity, out of what you just saw, anything good, bad, ugly. And this, for us, I'm asking that because I'm hoping that they answer it so that I can relate to them about their wish list. So we try to build the rapport and reframe the rapport building into the discussion about the house. So if they say they like a big backyard, I'm going to say, you know what, I do too. I like big backyards because I've got a lot of kids, I've got dogs, and sometimes I just like to sit there and let them just run crazy. And I've got a fence. I love it. Why do you like big backyards? Well, they now know I'm a dad. I'm a dog owner, right? Like there's so much wrapped in there. And so I'm trying to, for me, talking about the house and injecting myself into the conversation is more authentic for my personality type.
Yep.
And, everybody approaches these things a little bit differently. But what's key about what Robbie has shared and what I'm sharing is there's some very core similarities. And those similarities are, we're trying to make it about them.
Yeah.
Mine might be more based out of trying to protect my own anxieties or what have you, but I've figured out how to make it work for myself. Robbie's is, after 7 years of studying the lead conversion game, this is what he's come up with. And if you can make it a healthy discussion, the way that we're describing, you're effectively reframing the conversation instead of, did you want anything? And I remember I was looking for a couch, for some reason I felt like if I had a Chase, it's like a grown-up thing, the couch with where you can put your legs on it. And we went to a few different furniture stores, and same thing every time. Hey, what are you looking for? I'll help you find it. And every time, just looking, just browsing, not serious, just browsing, just serious, not serious. And we went to 4 stores. Well, the last one, the guy walks up to us, says, what has you shopping in a furniture store on a beautiful Saturday? So first of all, that was a great opener, right?
Wait.
And yeah, just ease me in. And then we told him because I felt comfortable now because he didn't ask
Yep.
me what do I want. He asked me what
Yep.
has me looking on a beautiful day. Then
Correct.
he
Yep.
says, all right, well, here's the deal. What you want is in the back left corner. He added value.
Yep.
Then he said, here's the flyer with the specials. What
Yep.
I'm going to do now he's given oh well, then he says, you go over there, I'm going to walk to the other side and do a couple things, and I'll come check on you later. Now he's set expectations.
Correct. Yep.
I felt safe to seriously explore the discussion because it was framed appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back a little while later, and now I had substantive bottom of funnel questions.
Correct.
What about this? What about that feature? How quickly can you ship? We ended up buying it there. Now, is it because of him? I don't know, but he certainly didn't get in my way.
Yep. Correct.
And so, you know, for us, reframing it and doing it correctly, it's the difference between being a less than average producer and a top producer. Not that it's about that, but at the same time, we gotta, we're here to make money too.
Dude, I love that. I love that story. And I guarantee if you would have said, even if you would have responded, I'm just kind of out here just checking things out, I guarantee he would have asked another question like, what, cool, what are you all you looking for? And
Right.
again, what happens when he asks questions that don't push you, they're just curious, your wall comes down. It's so
Right.
normal. It's just
Right.
like with your friends, right? When your friend's about to tell you something, the first time you ask a question, they don't tell you the whole dang truth, ever. You got to ask that second or third time. This is humans. It's the same thing with your kids, your spouses, right? Human psychology says we give a partial truth first. Partially, this is what people don't realize, Barry, is oftentimes we're still processing as humans. We don't fully know what we're thinking. Why? Because we're complex human beings. Heck, our brain's making assumptions all the time, and we just need to get used to that. So I need to add a few more things, Barry, before because I know we got 11 minutes left. I want to add a few more things quick. So there's two things people need to get comfortable doing when it comes to reframing the conversation. All right, write these down. Number one is you need to get very comfortable not answering people's questions. That sounds very opposite of what we're talking about. Here's the problem is you're not actually providing value when you're being a gatekeeper of information. That's not real value. You know what value that is? That's teeing somebody up to go and call another agent who's going to give lackluster service and completely screw them, and that's your fault. All right, so get very comfortable doing this. Again, reframing is the key today. Turning their question into a question. This is what you got to get so comfortable with, because they'll do it. That's why I know some of you are like, but leads always just, when I call that Zillow lead, they have questions about the house. Turn their question into a question, because this is the number one truth. The person asking the questions controls the conversation every single time. Here's what's so unique though, Barry, is if you were to go listen to our calls, when we're doing them or texting, they're 10 or 15 minutes long. If you ask that lead who controlled that conversation, guess what they're going to say? They did. Because they're the one doing 80 to 90% of the talking. We're just asking questions. It's an illusion, right? They're really not. And don't get me wrong, they do in some respects. They bring up pieces that I want to learn more about, and then we guide it. So my thing is like, if somebody tells me they want a big backyard, I'm going to say, great, why is that? Again, it's very simple to me, because here's the thing. Then I find out they have kids. They have a dog. They want privacy. Those are the three reasons for a backyard fence, by the way, always. Kids, pets, privacy. And now you know if it's privacy, they're a higher C almost every single time. Kids, now you know you can bring up, because here's the ticket, my friends. When somebody brings something up like they have kids, now I can ask more about that because they brought it up. Whereas if I just say out of left field, Barry, how many kids do you have? Barry's like, bro, what the heck? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's weird, right? It's like, get out.
Too much too
right?
soon.
Stiff arm you, right? Heisman. And then what happens is they completely cold shoulder you. But if they brought up they have kids, and then you ask about, oh, how old are your kids? That's normal, because guess who brought it up? Them. And we'll talk about this more in the next call of how do you look for opportunities to learn more without being a creepy a-hole. So the second thing, right, is you need to get very comfortable asking the same question multiple times. Now you say it in different ways, but you gotta get used to this, right? I'll ask somebody, so you think about making a move? They'll say, no, I'm just kind of looking. And then I'll sometime, you know, a minute or two later say, so got it. So you're just kind of looking for fun, but maybe you're thinking about making a move sometime soon. And they'll be like, yeah, maybe. Even though they just said they were just looking for fun. Why? Because that wall comes down. It comes down for a couple reasons. I'm not pushing them. I'm not telling them about interest rates. I'm not doing any of that because they don't care, right? They know interest rates are at absolute lows. It's everywhere. Nor do leads care. I've never heard a lead care or say, I'm buying a home because the interest rates are so low. I've never heard that in my whole experience. All that changes is the amount of home they can afford, frankly. It's so rare. So I want to point that out. And then another thing I want to hit on real quick is you named something so interesting, Barry, that a lot of people don't do is they try to read all about a lead, what homes they viewed, all that stuff. None of that stuff matters. None. 0%. Want to know why? Because then what happens is instead of you asking about it, you make assumptions. Just going blind. You know what the best thing ever was, Barry? I used to call people, and our internet was so slow, my internet, literally, I couldn't pull up stuff in the CRM. Couldn't do it. I would have leads calling me back. I'd have no clue who they were. No name, nothing, except a dang piece of paper. All right? When you do that, you know what that was? That was the greatest blessing because I learned to be able to pivot and ask questions knowing nothing. So I'd ask questions like, I literally found little hacks. Like, by the way, who am I speaking to again? Or, hey, by the way, how do I spell your name again? I would ask questions like that. If they told me their name and I forgot, I would find a way to hack it. I'd hack it together.
Yeah, but the worst was like when they said John. It's like,
yeah, no, it's easy. I'm like, oh, okay, God, so you don't want me to go John. You got to turn it into a joke, right? Because it's like, no. So I literally like, so you want me to make sure it's not John. Got it, right? You turn into a joke. So you can always do something like that. But that was one of the greatest gifts that I was ever given, was having to be able to make those calls. Honestly, it's one of the things I tell my ISAs to go and do is call blindly. Don't care about that information because it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
It doesn't. You don't need it.
Right.
If you need that, you're not that good yet. You need to work on what you're doing. You need to be able to go blind. It's probably a good idea to know their name, by the way. I will say that. But beyond that, I don't care if they've looked at a bunch of homes. You know, if I go online and I look at a bunch of homes and it says I'm looking at a $1.2 million home, oftentimes that doesn't mean anything. Or maybe I was looking at $30,000 homes because I'm looking at buying a lot to build a $300,000 home. You don't know, so stop making the assumption. That's the thing I've learned is there's actually very little correlation between a lead's behavior online and what they actually want to do. That's the interesting thing. It can be a decent indicator. It can also be a very poor indicator, especially because you have no clue if they're not on, or they're on Zillow today looking at 1 billion homes. You have zero clue, right? You know, it could be on somebody else's website. So for me, one of the greatest things I ever did was I learned to call and not care about what information I did have. It didn't really matter. Now, the difference is if I had a conversation with them before and I re-asked something that we had already talked about, that was a no-no, right? That was not as good. But in terms of like the generic stuff that you have, none of that information really matters. And then the last thing I'll say, and then Barry, I'll let you wrap this up. One of the biggest questions that we ask is, you know, once they tell us they're thinking about making a move, I'll ask, well, what are you looking for? Or what's your ideal home look like? Because what happens throughout all that is we're going to find out what they want. A big kitchen. Well, great. Why do you want a bigger kitchen? A big backyard. And there's opportunities that bubble up out of that because they tell you they have kids, right? My other favorite thing is, well, where do you want your home to be? What neighborhood, right? They'll tell you. And then you say, well, great. What stands out about that neighborhood? Almost always 2 reasons, right? Family, school district, kids, or close to work. Awesome. Now I have permission to ask about family, ask about kids every time. Never fails. In other words, I'm just hacking this together. So they'll tell me all this stuff and I'm learning what's their family like? What do they do for work? And they feel like they're bringing everything up. So to put this all together, right, you have 2 pictures in front of you. You can either talk about real estate or you can get them talking about themselves and their dreams about what they want to do. And this is the final thing you need to write down. In the left-hand side, your value proposition was being a gatekeeper of information. This is going to be the mind I was going to say a bad word, but the mind trip for you all to go down today is that when you get somebody to open up about what they need, want, or desire and their dreams, your value proposition is no longer being a gatekeeper of information. It is now you helping them get what they need, want, or desire. You become intertwined with it. You're having a conversation with them. The value proposition begins to shift from being a gatekeeper to being the person that's going to help them. And it all starts with a conversation like this. So that's it.
Yeah. No, that was killer, man. That was killer. You know, so again, today we talked about reframing. We went over a lot of stuff about like being able to instinctively react appropriately to, you know, what the lead is, or to our desire and motives in helping them. We talked about not getting all caught up in the money, but to try to really focus in on them. So that was about half. Then we went into talking about several instances of, you know, how to reframe, when to reframe, what the purpose of the reframing is. The one that I alluded to that I just want to end with on my end is there's something comforting when you're talking to a professional and they do set those expectations. You know, I remember I was working at a steel building company when the real estate market crashed, and the salespeople there would sell $30,000 buildings and make like $20. They would just give them away. They didn't know how to make any money. So this guy from England comes in that they hired. He was going to be a sales manager, but they made him sell first. No lie, his first sale, I was sitting next to him. He gets the guy on the phone and he says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm a human being. You're a human being. I'm going to take you through the virtual mall, and we are going to walk through the mall, and I'm going to ask you different items within the mall. So let's start here. And it was so cheesy. It was so cheesy, but it worked. And he made like $900. And that was more than all the other salespeople had made like ever. And of course, as the story goes, like he continued to do it, but he would set expectations. And so ways that I set expectations, you know, I'll just talk about like, you know, when while I'm taking it away from them, I tell them the goal is to empower you with information. So now what I've done is I've set the expectation of my goal and my motives in this conversation, setting the call of saying, you know, I'll tell you what, after you speak with the lender, I'll call you back a couple of days later. We'll just chat about what you heard. No big deal. So always when you're reframing and you're trying to connect with them, always try to have like a logical next step in that reframing. And you know, you don't. I'm not married to any one strategy there, but just keep that in mind. But all right,
dude, I'm glad you brought the flat bill hat. I didn't see enough edamame though in this recording, so.
I just ate it so much faster. You know why? Because the first time I tried to hide it, and this just so everybody knows, I will be eating edamame the entire masterclass. Why, you ask? I have no idea. it's important to me for some reason. So I'm gonna live my truth.
I love it, dude. All right. So I gotta jump here. Anything that you want to end on?
Kiwi, is there a question that anybody asked?
We didn't check. Yeah. Oh, we got a few. I see a few. What does that second question look like when a person responds just looking for fun? Great. Why are you looking for fun? I think I kind of hit on that. So,
mine is I love looking for fun. I love it. It's fun.
Yeah.
I always, whatever their objection is, I always try to affirm and make them feel amazing. Like not just like, oh yeah, I like looking for fun. You know, we go kind of big on that, but we're repeating it back. We're telling them, and then we just keep going. Amen. What are you hoping to change about where you live? That kind of thing. All right, next.
Are these conversations through text or on the phone? If they're through text, how do you deal with the silence or ghost? I think these are just principles, psychological principles, frankly, that don't matter. If they ghost you, one of my favorite things to do is send a text saying, "Tag, you're it." Right? Do it. Like stuff like that. Imagine if you're a friend, you send a text to a friend and they hadn't respond, what would you send to that person? Right? Hey Barry, just want to see if you got my last text. It really kind of depends on how the conversations go. Something like that. So re-nudge them is a big deal.
Yeah, via text, there's a emoji and they have big eyes with like watery like the person's not the crying, but it's like the that's what I use. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but the idea is just to have fun with it.
Right. Yeah. Don't overthink it.
Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. And then Patrick Raymond said, Patrick Raymond, my 3C's: curiosity, connection, collaboration. That's funny because when I said I did a whole talk about the new ABCs of sales in that TED talk, you know, it's always be curious, connecting, and collaborating. It's the three most powerful words to guide everything I do. And even right now, right? We're both being curious, we're connecting, we're collaborating. Like it's a guidepost for everything I do in life, professionally, and when I'm at the best version of myself. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's honestly why I feel like people ask me to do these talks with other people, because I'm just really curious where you're coming from and I want to know about it. But again, that goes back to the first half of our class.
exactly.
Well, great job, gentlemen. That was fantastic. But I want to just finish off by letting everyone know this is part 2 done. Now we've got part 3 coming up. Remember, there's 6 total. So we're nearly halfway through, which is incredible. Yeah. So November the 11th. Again, we'll post into Facebook. You guys will get an email. And, we'll keep the ball rolling, eh?
I like it.
Yeah, really, really good. Thanks, Robbie, man. I learned a lot.
I love it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, cheers. Put it on. See ya.